All right, everybody. We are live on YouTube. I got Greg Kaplan here. We're going to chat about stuff. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. I got my voter guide 22 on there. That's got a bunch of easy cheat sheet stuff, as well as links to KGIS and Knox County Election Commission. You can go to those places and get more information on where you're, like what district you're in, what your voting status is, those kind of things. Anyway, Greg said he really liked the intro, so we're going to let the intro play out, and we're going to dance a little bit, and then me and Greg are going to talk about District 18 and what's coming up there. All right, there's the intro, everybody. Greg danced. I thought about what buttons I forgot to push, which I think I got everything working right. So we're good on that front. So I don't know, Greg, let's start with a little brief history of you, how you got from a wee little person to where you are now in front of us.
That drum riff was great, first of all. Yeah. No, seriously. Thanks for inviting me on the show, Seth. And happy early Father's Day. It's Father's Day weekend.
Yep. And we got Juneteenth this weekend too. It's a big
We
weekend.
have a lot going on this weekend, and it's the beginning of the summer. It's hot, and the thing is that that's how Knoxville summers start. They're hot. I came from a more northern place. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I lived in Columbus, Ohio through high school. And then I went to school at the University of Texas at Austin, for undergraduate. And then I began to go for my graduate degree, and I spent time in Spain, and I got a master's degree from Bowling Green State University. I did my doctorate at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, specialized in medieval Spain, which includes the language of Spain from Latin until modern Spanish, as well as medieval literature on that dealing with the Spanish Jews, which goes through from Roman times through the 17th century and through the Inquisition also. And then they hired me at the University of Tennessee in 1995. My first job was at Boston College. They stole me away from Boston College here at UT, and it was a great job. I love working here since 1995. And, part of our job at the University of Tennessee, 33% of that is devoted to service. And during the last 30, almost, 27 plus years, close to 30 years, I've been very involved in research, teaching, and service. But I wanted to stress that, watching the Centro Hispano, which is a core Hispanic organization in Knoxville, grow from really just its roots to what it is now, working to link students to the Centro Hispano to get internships in order, to teach night classes, to help with tax preparation, to do service to the community. And now I'm proud to say is that, and by the way, I work at the University of Tennessee, but I don't represent the University of Tennessee. I'm just a person who works there, but I'm glad to see that service is more important than ever at the University of Tennessee. So I worked since 1995, and now it's 2022, and it's a different, that's how I got here.
Okay, so let's. I want to go. I want to go out of campaign topic for just a second because this is an interesting thing going on locally. What are your thoughts on this discussion of separating the College of Arts and Sciences?
I think, yeah, I didn't know we'd be starting down this road today.
I
And
mean,
again,
it.
yeah, I know, I appreciate the question, and I want to just stress that as a candidate for this office, I don't represent any university view.
Right.
All I represent is a person who works at one of the institutions of higher education
Right. I understand
throughout the university, the state of Tennessee. My personal opinion on any decisions that are this important that are made right now is that we've just passed through 2 years of a COVID pandemic, which is the impact of that. We don't even know what that is yet. So I would say that any big decisions like this, perhaps, this might be a time to put a little more thought into them because to get some distance between the decisions and the pandemic. That's all. But aside from that, I know people are working really hard to restructure or to work on improving a university that's already great
Okay.
since
Again,
I
like,
got there in
right.
1995.
I understand, and I actually really appreciate that you took the time to take the caveat that this has nothing to do with the electioning, because that's one of my pet peeves out of candidates in general, is when candidates talk in candidate capacity about things that they can't do in the job that they're seeking. So I appreciate that you separated that, because I think that's important, and I think that's something that's lacking generally in our politics at large. And so let's go back to the actual conversation we're here for. So what was it? What's why now? Why 18? What made you make the leap from the lowly college professor to now a political figure?
Well, when Gloria Johnson and Sam McKenzie, and the thing is, I'm in a new district, 18, which you're in, which unites parts of West and South Knoxville, which includes South Doyle, Mount Olive, Bearden, Sequoia, and Rocky Hills, and a couple other areas. But that's a new unification after the last census. Gloria couldn't run anymore in that district because she was pushing another district. She called me, and Sam called me too. And they said, "Hey, Greg, you want to run for this office?" And you know what I said? This was a little while ago. I said, "Let me think about this." I thought of House Bill 2670, which is Divisive Concepts Bill. I don't know if you know what that is, but that caused a political awakening in me. I don't know if you know what that is. That bill, which was passed, has been passed by the House and Senate in this spring. And the reason I thought of it is because I watched people on campus and at other institutions of higher education throughout Tennessee get afraid by this legislation. I watched because they were afraid that this would restrict the way they can teach and the way people can learn. Because I don't know if do you know anything about
Yeah, I've
this?
been following it. That's one. I mean, that's an easier one to follow because it's been made more ruckus about than some of the other ones.
Yeah, because specifically it makes it illegal to act upon any divisive concept. And my own teaching and research focus on medieval Spain through early modern Spain, and Inquisition is a
Right.
major
Right. It's a pretty divisive
component of
concept.
that.
Right.
This is exactly the same as the Inquisition was the first time that the government controlled how education was done at universities. So it inspired me to run. When they called me, I said this is very dangerous legislation. And so I looked into more, and I looked at Medicaid, for example, healthcare coverage, which is another way of describing what more than 300,000 Tennesseans could have if the state of Tennessee finally accepted the $2.1 billion as that was granted many years ago, and which, by the way, on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats have tried to accept. One of the things, Seth, do you mind if one of the things that when I started this campaign, I called around to everyone throughout the state and I said, why hasn't this money been accepted? And the reason they gave me, I can't even say right now what the reason is they gave me, because I won't say it, but it had nothing to do with politics. And since everyone's health is at risk here, and we're talking about more than 300,000 Tennesseans, we're talking about pregnant women with cervical cancer, with breast cancer, we're talking about children who are living in houses where the income level is too low or too right now not low enough for them to get Medicaid. We're talking about senior citizens. And the problem in Tennessee is that if we don't accept this money, it just continues to cost people too much to even get sick. People can't accept jobs because their salary will go to a point where they can't get Medicaid.
Right.
And
I have a great personal story on that.
yeah. So I have to run on this. So it's
right.
urgency. It's the urgency.
There's a girl that I like when I used to work at a restaurant, and there's a girl that was a hostess for us, and she got pregnant. And basically, her case manager more or less told her, it's like you're going to get better care and coverage and state assistance if you're unemployed. And so she quit working, and it's like she was working fine and she was enjoying work. She didn't want to quit. It was the like, yeah, it was. It's crazy to me that makes sense that quitting working is the correct thing to do for your own bottom line. But that's that. But that's a pregnancy. It's a little bit different. But yes, I follow you on that one, and I think I think healthcare at large is one of the big interesting ones, and I think it's one of the ones that I don't think we the public really quite understand who's where and what. And I think that's one of the problems that I have when trying to discuss it. Like this particular issue has been one that's been conversated about, and doesn't make sense why we're not. As the lazy statement is, it's the money's just sitting there waiting for us to spend. Why aren't we taking it and spending it? But I think the overarching complexities that is the healthcare conversation is one of the issues that I don't even know where to start anymore. And it's such a hard one when the politics part becomes involved, because I don't know, like, what, again, let me back up a half a second. Like I was saying earlier, like I one of the things that frustrates me is when candidates speak out of turn. Like it bothers me. I get onto candidates on Facebook all the time on stupid little argument points about stuff. It's like, hey, that's not your job. It's not what you're asking for. Let's stay with what you're asking for, because I, as a citizen, am getting better at understanding that, but I would say that I'm better than average in the understanding of that. And I think that's one of the subjects to me that that I wish I had a better resource to figure it out, because one of the things to me that I think that if we went around and just kind of surveyed average Knox County residents or whatever, District 18 people on your behalf or whatever, and we're just looking around asking questions, I think we say, well, who controls what happens in your schools? They're going to say the school board. They might say the mayor. They might say county commission.
Something.
Right, but
they don't control the legislation that's been done on banning books, for example.
Right.
Which by the way, takes the control away from local people and puts they did a last hour legislation. But anyway, go on. Yeah,
right, but that's the point. Is that I think as I'm getting a better understanding it, UN 18, Massey's District 6 in the state Senate for me, UN 18 and Massey and 6 have more impact on what's actually happening in my kid's school than the school board, than the mayor.
Where do your kids go to school?
We're out in Rocky Hill. I'm an 18. We're Rocky Hill kids. Well,
how old are your kids?
Well, actually, we're going into Bearden Middle now for the older one. So I have a rising 6th and a rising 4th grader.
My son went to Bearden Middle School. He just graduated from West High School last month.
That's the track we are on.
Yeah, I liked. Those are all good schools, and you know what the best part is? All the principals of all the schools they work 24/7 they do a great job. And I think that the only complaint I would have is that when sometimes when you go to elementary school, the middle school, the size changes very abruptly. But aside from that, there's a tremendous effort made on that wide scale then to include a greater community. So I want to say that my son, he went to Sequoia, Bearden, and now West High School, and now he's that's it.
Yeah, but
Knoxville Public Schools, I like that.
I think that's one of those things that we as the public need to get better at understanding whose role is what, because I think it's too broad and it's too unclear and it's too easily muddied by the politics instead of the truth of. Because then I can't hold account, because I don't know who to hold account for an issue I have.
Yeah, well, may I, I'm sorry to
no, go ahead, please.
But I know we have limited time, and I would say that you're exactly right, because here's another one of the reasons I'm running is that I've seen, and this was the House Bill 2670, Divisive Concept Bill, is just an example, but many bills pass through the House that don't make any sense, and it seems that the only reason that they're being passed is to enforce an agenda which may not be shared by the majority of the people in Tennessee. And
right.
Seriously, that's why the urgency is there, because it seems like it's coming too quick and too fast now. Because you just saw, for example, in the end of April, some last minute legislation on book banning, which people can barely understand. And I just want to say that what that did again, it's the most important was take the control from the local people,
Right.
whatever district you're in.
Right.
Keep this. You should decide what happens in your schools, right? Now, these global bills, I'd be fighting against those in the state senate. Expanding healthcare coverage. What about homelessness? That's another issue. That's going to affect districts throughout Tennessee. We could talk about other issues. So I'm saying it's like there are there. I think that there are shock that we're talking about important issues now, but I think that we have a new district, and I think there's urgency.
Right. I'm interested to see how this new 90 plays out in this 18 transition. I've been 18 the whole time. I'm right in the smack center, so it technically hasn't affected me. I've been 18 forever, but again, like I said, like one of the things I guess that's been a topic talked about that I'm curious your thoughts on because of the position that you're seeking is there's been discussion, maybe it's a little bit back of the envelope, not serious discussion about maybe bringing our House state or our House and state Senate seats into what we call a full-time position, partially for the pay aspect of it because it would open the door for having potentially more people get involved because a lot of people who don't have the time to give up a third of their year and pay their bills with the tiny salary that the House seat makes, which I'm good with you guys making no money doing it. I think that's appropriate on some level as well. But one of the questions I have, and again, I'm trying to track it down. Like me and the main show guys have been talking about a concept to try to start next year of doing a mini episode on every bill. And every time we talk about it, it's immediately, that's impossible. I've talked to people who do it. I talked to Manis or Massey about it and stuff like that. It's like it's impossible.
Great idea.
But the problem is it's impossible. There's so many. I mean, 2067 was the one that you're talking about.
That makes more shows and they're more interesting. There's always people involved.
Right. It's good for content.
I'm 100% in favor for that. And you ask about. Here's how I look at this position right now. I'm running for a 2-year position, and that's 24 months. That's all the months of 2 years. Okay. During part of that time, my job would be to learn the issues of District 18. I mentioned a couple. Who are the people in District 18 who do not have Medicaid coverage right now, who would need it? I would want them to email me. I would want them to email me right now. I want to know who you are, because according to statistics, there should be several thousands of you. And what we have to repeal those very dangerous bills. So what is the basis for repealing those bills? Those are the documents you craft on the 8 months a year before you go to Nashville and be in the committee and be in the subcommittee and present the bills through the whole process. It's 24 months. It doesn't matter what they pay. I would say that none, I don't know anyone who does this. You don't do it for the money. You do it because of the passion. And you do it because the moment is urgent, and you do it because the time is now, and you do it because it is too late. Before it's too late, we cannot stop. We can't. Someone's got to stand up. We have a Republican supermajority right now. All legislation is being passed by them. We have to stand up, because I believe that in this state, many people do not believe in the core concepts that are being passed right now.
I mean, I could 100% agree with that, because many people don't have coverage sucks. I mean, my favorite local news source is the Compass guys. I think they're as good as it gets, but they don't cover state issues. They stay local. And there's only a few state newspapers that do coverage, and they do pick and choose coverage. And it's usually the 2067s, like you mentioned, that are the high profile, everybody gets excited about one. But there's dozens and dozens and dozens that run through their whole process, and we don't know what it is yet. And unless you're a small section of people that are affected by that specific one and pay real close attention, like I don't smoke pot.
Your show is very important, by the way.
I try, but I don't smoke pot. I don't care to smoke pot. Pot's not on my list of things I like to do, but I don't think it should be illegal. I think one of the things to be like, I pitched this at everybody. I pitched this at Massey when she was running last time. The whole thing is, before the federal government goes and removes marijuana from Schedule 1, Tennessee needs to be in place. We need to be one of the, I mean, we're at what, we already have 20 something legal states anyway. We need to be 26, 27, whatever the next number is, because for the sake of jobs and economy, we need to grow, ship, and sell here. It's going to happen. Everybody knows it's going to happen. So let's take advantage of the slowness of the federal government and get it in place and go ahead and start making some money on it, get some tax revenue, all those good things that we do these things about. And hey, I don't know, maybe get a few people out of jail because they shouldn't be there in the first place.
Well said. First of all, I want to say something. Gloria, thank you. Do you mind? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
you're
know
good.
you're, no, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Gloria Johnson has introduced legislation to legalize medical marijuana that was almost passed. And the thing is that look at Florida, for example. Florida it has completely regulated the industry in medical marijuana and is now earning tremendous tax revenue. That is an alternate tax revenue source that could be available in the state of Tennessee right now. And the only reason it isn't is a slim vote.
Right.
If Gloria reintroduced her legislation, I would support it.
I mean, because to me, because to me, I could go at it from the right and and pitch it, because if you're on the right, you're supposed to be small government, open business, whatever you want to call it, those kind of things, less restrictions, less oversight kind of thing. And it's like, hey, here's a thing that we could do, and we can make a ton of money off it, and blah 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 blah. Like, I mean, it just seems like a no brainer to me at this point, but it's somehow. It's just to me, it's not enough of a political issue to get anybody elected, and that's really what it comes down to.
It's not, and it's an alternate source of revenue because when people talk about how would they fund something, why don't you just regulate something according to how it's done in another state and other states? I mean, you just have to copy and paste their system, and I think the fact that that produces alternate revenue, then you decide what to do with it. And Tennessee, I think we try to build up a rainy day fund, for example. That would be a good source to build up more of our rainy day
Right.
fund.
Right. I
When
agree.
it's necessary.
I mean, maybe not go quite as far as California did and make sure that it's not overly taxed so the black market still exists. That's one of the problems
Florida
I've
is a
seen
good
out there.
example. And I think we should beat Florida in football and maybe copy them in this law. But
All right, that's a good standard to set. So, I
yeah,
mean, we've
yeah,
talked
yeah.
about I get, I specifically understand why that 2067 was particularly important to you as a person in the higher education bracket. But when and then the book burning one is just because you're an educator historically, but Medicare was one of the ones you listed. What else is kind of some
Oh,
of the?
Medicaid. Actually, it's Medicaid.
Excuse me, I
Medicaid
apologize. Okay,
yeah, no, and that's important to distinguish because that's actually a program for, certain sector of society. And these are programs that have already been approved by the federal government. We're just not implementing them in the state of Tennessee. I think homelessness was another issue because the rate of homelessness rose 50% the past year.
okay,
And I think that although the state of Tennessee is doing, it's starting on the road to implementing many, housing first programs. We have to go further. We have to go further to home the homeless. That is the most immediate concern. And without extending the problem by involving people in the judicial system, by ostracizing them, by not giving them mental care they need, but they can't be homeless anymore. They must be homed. There's not even a word in English.
right. Well, so how do we? But I mean,
but
this one
but
brings
I'm
up a
saying that
particular.
we need to do more. For example, we are doing some affordable housing in Knoxville. We need a little more. See, the objective, these programs, they it takes a coordinated effort from all sides. And so you have to have job, you have to have vocational training, mental health, actual homes, secure homes, and not penalize people for getting to that point. So I think that our attitude needs to change a little. I mean, it's increased 50%. I mean, the problem is increasing, so we need to deal with it. And I think that funding alternatives, for example, I'll give you some example. There is a real estate transfer tax that is a negotiable tax. It goes certain percent from low to high. That tax, and it is used in Knoxville and other cities, that tax is actually used to fund a source for alternative for low cost housing to people to put it people to put people in that housing right away.
Okay, real quick. So that's a tax that's permissed by the state that the localities can use, or that is a tax that the state has put into the
It's a
transaction.
transfer fee. If you look it up, and that, yeah, it's used for it's a transfer fee. That's one of the things when you buy a house, and
Right.
that's a tax that's sometimes used to fund um, pools of money that could be used to build alternative house, or excuse me, low cost housing. And that's what you're trying to, to fund as much as possible. Because the thing about low cost housing is it has to be done in proportion to the actual percentage of the homeless people. So you have to look at the percentage. I mean, this went up 50%. So what are you going to do with that? So you have a new population that has to be moved as quickly as possible into permanent housing. And that is housing first. To move them into housing, to permanent housing, and then have them stay there through these programs already existing, rather than making them pass through stages to get to that point.
Right.
So you have to deal with this now. You're giving me 2 years as a representative from District 18. That's not a lot of time. These are things I would work on from day one. You can't talk about abstract issues anymore. These are real issues that are affecting us today and tomorrow. And you want to say, how will things be better in 5 years? Let's solve this problem.
Right.
Let's solve the Medicaid problem. Let's get these people coverage that they've already been granted by the federal government. And let's not issue divisive legislation that's not even making sense. It's scaring people. And divisive concept bill is going to keep people from coming to Tennessee. I saw it in the faces of my friends around Knoxville, and that's why I had to run.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, because again, I think it's to me, it boils back down to we as an uninformed populace. We don't know who is and who has the authority in the current structures to deal with certain issues, and so we just kind of deal with the issues as we see it.
It would be as there is a super majority, and I was listening to one of your podcasts a couple weeks ago, and you're talking about how Eddie Manis had a tough time getting on the right committee. I think right now I'm thinking part of my election campaign is thinking how to get on that committee, because there is no voice from UT in the entire Tennessee General Assembly. Not one person who works, who knows what's going on, who's been there. And my question to you is, on these committees where they won't let people on, wouldn't it help these people just to listen to me? So if they rejected me, they heard what was going on.
Right.
That's why I'm running.
Okay.
I have to.
Right. No, I get it. I'm just like I'm.
It's the voice of the people, like you're saying.
So what?
I know what could.
Well, no,
so I'm running for that.
I guess what I'm trying to kind of work out in my head right now is, because this is one that I've always been confused on anyway, is when you have a land grant school like UT or whatever, and like where the relationship of the government and universities are. It's always been one of those weird spots to me. Like,
Well, there's many schools, and I'm representing public education. No, I'm not representing UT because
right, I understand what
UT
you're saying. I get
right.
that
So
part.
I'm saying is I'm a teacher. I'm a public educator, and all this legislation is designated, or is directed towards public education.
Right, because
So
it's
I'm talking to every public educator in Tennessee, and there aren't many of them on the committees that make decisions about education in Tennessee. And I'm saying, isn't there a point where you want some educators on those
right.
committees?
No, I 100% hear that. I guess the question I'm trying to get to here is semi off topic, in the sense of, in a how much with a university like Tennessee, how much of UT being a public school affects the way it is allowed to do its day-to-day operations?
A lot. Oh, the image. That's a great question, and I'm gonna answer it with the study abroad. One of the things is that throughout the state, we try to send throughout the state of Tennessee students to study abroad. And you know what the reason is? So they'll see a perspective of their state from another place, which they would never see, and then they'll come home with that perspective. And so I'm saying is that the answer to your question is all these things I've been talking about are viewed from another perspective from people outside Tennessee. And I'm going to tell you, Seth, there's people outside Tennessee in the world, and our Tennessee is hooked into the world. That doesn't look good for our state. People won't come here.
I mean,
Never beat Florida and Alabama. By
this
the
is
way,
this is a joke statement, but I mean, there's we're getting to the point where I don't know if we want more people to come here. We're having like, because we're talking about housing the homeless.
Tennessee's a great
It
state.
is.
I mean, but the rules it's making about public education, which affect K to 12, for example, that they just passed the TISA Act,
Right.
and that's another thing. And the TISA Act, do you know what it's done?
I've been trying to figure it out.
Here's the key number with the TISA Act. Okay, look. In order to fully fund a public school student, you need to give that student around $17,500 a year, right? Okay, currently in Tennessee, throughout the entire state, we are distributing more or less $11,000 a year per student. The new TISA Education Act raises some per funding, per pupil to the 16,000 level, but it keeps many people at the 11,000 level. And this is available on the PowerPoint presentation, the overview, that's what they call it, overview PPT. And many elementary school students are reduced to $8,000. It's a funding formula that doesn't add up for enough students to get to as close as possible to $17,000.
I mean, it's 17 because as I understood it in the current formula, Knox County was in like the 10-ish range per student.
Right, we're in the 11. That's what I'm saying is that throughout Tennessee, the fact that per pupil in the state of Tennessee, we currently earn around 11,500, I think, dollars, has earned us a grade of D or F, which is not a good grade, by the way. That won't be in the future, don't worry, for our public education system. According to the new TISA formula, we start at about 8,000 or 7,000, which, by the way, is way below 11,000. If you look, I know it's based on incentives. I know that. But look at the students who make it past the 11,500 mark. There's many of them that are either right around there or at 8,000 for elementary school students. So in 2 years, I would hope to modify the TISA education.
I mean, I don't get it. Like I joke around a lot because I've dug in deep. I've had Ron McPherson on like 3 or 4 times just trying to understand the current funding formula. Haven't even started really deeply diving into the new one. And the question to me, and this is the question I do with school board members as well, is like, because I think, again, this is another one like the pot thing we were talking about earlier. To me, I think the general agreement of the public is that the schools are failing at what they're supposed to be doing. They're not doing a good enough job, or they're not doing the job that we expect. There's a whole subset of question in there in the what do we expect?
We are failing schools by not fully funding them because the people who work in schools are the teachers and the administrators doing a great job. We should fully fund them according to statistics. I just gave you 70,000 and plus. You shouldn't just, if you pass arbitrary bills, that's not going to, really help. And then if you neglect certain schools, for example, if you privilege some and take public money and fund something that's not public, that's another way. So I think the problem is not when my son, I thought that there was a point in Knoxville, where more attention need to be paid to curriculum, to.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get to here is like,
my son was growing up, I agree. And more attention. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm running.
Well, I mean,
We can't.
it's a
Yeah, we're
lazy.
already taking money from public schools to fund other projects, and that can't happen.
I mean,
And that's
I follow what you're saying for sure, but I guess to be the question is that the solution, just to put more money in? Like, is that
no,
enough?
no. We're taking money out. That's what I'm saying is we're defunding. I'm not saying put more money in because first of all, what I'm talking about is what I'm talking about a reduction of 11,000 to 8,000. That's taking money out. I'm saying when you have public school money, you need to just use it for public schools. And according to this funding formula, I do not see it benefiting students equitably throughout the state. I see it being advantageous to some and leaving many others below what's already earned us a D or an F. And that's the problem I have.
Right, but okay, but I follow what you're saying. I agree to some level in what you're saying, but I
We have to
follow at
modify
least.
that formula. We have to modify the formula. You have to base, for example, you would raise the lowest, you have to raise the lowest part to what the minimum is, for example. And I think that one of the problems with the formula I saw was that the minimum was way too low.
Right.
So you're starting to build incentives on,
So
but
the it's not slice the pie differently; it's make a bigger pie.
exactly, exactly. It's making a small piece of pie, a really short piece of pie,
Right.
down to the bottom piece of pie. And you're supposed to build up on that pie to get to the whipped cream on top. And I'm saying what you're starting with is way too short of a pie. And that could be done through mathematics. Seth, this is the way I know I think that people put a lot of work into these bills, and I think they're selling us short with this bill. I have to get to I think that people are being privileged. Meanwhile, educational communities are not improving through this. And I don't think it's a better formula than what exists. And I think it needs to be improved.
Okay, so this isn't. I don't mean this as a divisive question or not, and I don't. This is a question I have because I just don't know the answer. Of the total percentage of the state budget, how much of it is into education?
I actually have to look that one
I
up.
saw it.
What is the
I saw it not long ago.
25? Was it 2030? Was it around there? I don't know. I don't know actually what the entire amount is.
Right. I
I have
remember
to
it
look at the
being
current state budget.
right. I think I remember being around a quarter, and then there's another additional
That's what I would say 25. Initially, I would say 25.
and then it was like another 10% in the higher education subset of the bracket.
Right. And these are, again, these are funds that are, I mean, you have to decide where the public money is going, and let's just make sure that all public money that's designated for education is actually going to public education. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, I get in trouble a lot because I'm open to the conversation about vouchers. I don't understand it. I've tried to get some people on here that are pro voucher to actually give me the pitch. I'm not
I think
asking.
it's a separate conversation. I think if vouchers have nothing to do with defunding public school education, then
Right.
we can have a separate conversation about
I
it.
get what you're saying on that too. So I think I think it's an interesting conversation. It's one worth having. I just don't have anybody that can actually explain a voucher program other than examples from other places that may or may not be what we're trying to do here. So that's not important.
No, sometimes it seems like the voucher would be the same as why don't you make the public school better in the first place? That's
Right.
what you would say as a parent. That's what I would say as a parent. And that's a good question.
Right. Well,
That
because
is a good
right, because to me, like, and to me, and I think it illustrates some of the different things we've already been talking about. Is if I were to go out and advocate for vouchers, what I'm saying is that I want to have more control over what's going on in my school. And if that's the argument that I want to have, then why are we doing things at the state level that's taking control out of the local portion of what's going on in
Exactly. That's
public
what I'm
schools?
saying.
And so it's like
Don't
there's an inconsistency there between two different things happening at the same time. And it's like, well, we need to pick a path here. If this is the path we're going to take, then we need to acknowledge that and not vote against ourselves at the same time on another one.
It looks like that there's the law after the law passed that looks like this, and there has to be some voice just to who wouldn't if it was continued to be passed and they listened to a voice of reason, maybe they would say that they at least listen to that voice of reason.
Well, I guess to
That would
me,
be
I guess to me, just like again, this is not reality by any means, but just in a very tongue-in-cheek sort of format. It's like, well, we're doing something right? Because people are coming here in droves.
I think that many people in Tennessee are confused right now. The new which district are they in, for
Right?
example?
Yeah.
Voting in new districts I think there's been a lot of confusion, and that never helps anyone. So I think no, I believe that I think the tendency is always that people are very interested in educating their kids. I've always seen tremendous effort. I mean, by the parents to organize the groups that support the schools, and I think that public education is just something that, we need to
I mean,
stress.
I agree. I think it needs to be better. I think a very boiled down version of the what I would consider the biggest problems we have as a state and country, for that matter, I think all stem out of the failing to support education, however you want to word it. Because we have a failing nation right now, and we're not teaching kids to be good, productive parts of the system. And so, what do we expect?
The custodians of society in our old age, and we're young. I know paid parental leave, for example, that's something that we could kind of push that,
So who's paying for that?
we have to look for alternate sources of revenue if
But
we
that would be,
establish good
but that would be,
practices.
but that would
You
be
know
a.
what? I heard that before it existed in another place, and I won't mention the place, but I'm going to tell you something. Where there's a will, there's a way.
I don't disagree. Like, one of the things for me, I own a small business as well as have a day job, and I guess technically I own the business that is this podcast as well, but I don't have any employees, so that's way easier. And then again, this is one of these more out of ignorance on my end than it is out of understanding the actual concepts. But when people talk about things like extended paid leave, paternity, not just maternity leave, making sure a pregnant woman can get her job back after pregnancy so she doesn't get fired for having a kid, because it's kind of important for the continuation of society to have kids. We should probably
Yes, it
support
is.
that.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
but I guess the question is like, as a business owner, I can't not have an employee for 6 months
No,
without
no,
hiring a
geez,
replacement, and I can't afford to
no.
pay somebody to not work. So when we talk, and again, this is a broader thing. This isn't specifically, I suppose, inside it's semi inside the discussion
There
of
could be a
campaigning.
state law on subsidies for that. I don't. I think could be.
What do you think about
That,
making some sort of way that I don't have to be a tax collector just because I'm a business owner?
I think that small businesses. I was taught that that's the backbone of America, and I think that small
It
businesses
is. It's the tax burden backbone of America. You're
and
100%.
they deserve. You know what? We need to give more. Okay, yeah, tax advantages, more incentives, more business-friendly spaces. By the way, for example, on Alcoa Highway, which would be a part of the new District 18, let's make sure any business that crops up there has a good entrance with T-Dot and they can get out. Small businesses are what make this country great. And the more they're open and the more people study to open them and work to open them, I'm all in favor of
Right.
any
Goes
advantage
back to
that
our
we can
pot
give.
thing earlier. Get that legal weed in here. We can go. We can have all sorts of new businesses
Well,
popping
that's
up.
different. It would have to be controlled medicinally. I mean, I'm talking about Florida where it's medicinal and you have to be a patient. You have to see a physician. You have to go through a certain set of, I thought that's what Gloria Johnson was introducing.
Right.
And that's
I understand that
that
as a pathway, but to me, I think again to go back to the eventuality of it, the full recreational side of it should be on board too. I don't see why not.
it is a, you know what, it's an interesting issue. I think that currently, I think right now we have a law that was just barely, barely didn't pass by Gloria. And so I think that should be reintroduced.
All right.
That's right.
I mean, again, I think I think to me, I would like to see it fully unregulated, but that's because I'm a psycho like that. But I just don't just for the pure economics of it, it doesn't make sense that we don't go full rec yesterday. But at least the medicinal is a step in the right direction, and everybody will go
People are
get a
making
prescription for
money.
back
The
pain.
tax revenue is flowing in other parts of the country. You are right. You
Right.
are right.
And so, well, I mean, and for work too, everybody likes to run on, supporting businesses and getting people work and doing all those kind of things. And it's like, there's plenty of work in farm and fields, and there's plenty of work in doing the sorting and all the different parts and pieces that industry would provide. And so it's not just tax revenue directly from the sale of it. It would be a significant amount of, I guess, sales tax revenue from new people working and then spending their money on sales tax revenue.
I think the medicinal boom to the economy has been well proven in
Right.
Florida, for example. I think that's an excellent. I mean, you know what? It's not everything, but it's a big state, made a big decision.
And we'd
Governor
grow.
Ron DeSantis Governor Ron DeSantis is behind that decision. So I think, even Republicans could be on board with that.
They should be anyway. Like I said, I can go at it from the right and be correct too, but I don't know. I don't care that much about pot. It just comes up to just being such a no duh to me, and that's why I always like to talk about it.
It's another source of revenue. And, you know, again, it's been proven to work in other states for very controlled. And so they're gaining tax revenue. I don't know. Gloria has the legislation.
Well, I mean, the state tried to go backwards last year, and apparently Briggs up in State Senate 7 is pretty on board with hammering out some of what the hemp market's doing right now, and try to push that into the illegal side of it, which I'm not particularly pleased with. It was House Bill 1927 last year, if you want to look it up.
I will. And you know what? May I say on that note that, the state legislature is in session for a couple months a year. The rest of the year, I'd be fielding issues. Like, how would I know the issues on, District 18? I would want I want to know people who aren't covered by Medicaid. I want to know people who support this issue. I want to know people who are affected by did they think that the control for public education has been taken out of them? I want, my email.
Right. And again, I think
I don't want to mention my email, but I know because it's probably your show.
No, yeah, absolutely. We will plug. We will do all those plugs here in a few minutes. But again, I think I go back to the same thing. I think it's lack of engagement, which is the number one issue I think we have as a society. We are failing to engage with our public figures and what the public is, what the government is supposed to be, and how that interaction is supposed to be. We're failing miserably at it because it's so big and so complicated. Because I think one of the things that I think you're right, and I think that should be part of the job, that in the off season when you're not in Nashville directly working, that it should be the engagement portion of it. But it's like, again, my joke about trying to do a show on every bill that would come up. They never finish where they start. Again, like if you go through the all the different filings on 1927, when you look at it, it starts out as its summary from the very beginning was to adjust a due date for some data on hemp-related issues. And by the time it got to one of its last subcommittees, it was talking about a full ban on products. And I knew that because I was well invested in making sure I figured out what was going on here, because potentially if it had passed come July 1, I'm breaking the law. And it's important to me in my business to not break said laws because I like to stay open and keep some of the business alive, even though that would pretty much cut me in half. But, I got to deal with what's in front of me. But again, I think that's part of the issue, is that it's so complicated from beginning to end that it's a wonder why everybody doesn't disengage, unless it's something very specific. And I think that gap is what I'm trying to figure out how to bridge.
I think it's not such a big gap.
Okay.
What I've heard, it's not such a big gap.
I don't know, because I got into it with Gloria about that topic specifically because I was talking to her about this 1927 one that I was complaining about, and she was pretty opposed to it.
Very, supportive.
And she was like, and she was like, I'll look into it and I'll see what I can figure out for you and stuff like that. But she's like, go check out the website. It's pretty easy to follow. I disagree. I'm not super smart. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not an idiot either. And it is not super, super simple to follow. I ended up doing a big push through our social media to try to get people to call their different reps to say, hey, please vote no on this. I don't want you to do that. And I ended up doing it the day after the last subcommittee met, because I got confused trying to figure out where it was in committee and what the next action was and all that kind of stuff. It's not impossible, but it's not easy to follow either. And so I want to figure out how to bridge that gap. And I'm not asking you to do that necessarily as a rep, but it is something I think that I can't help but think it's somewhat on purpose. Over time, it's become this kind of when you get in and you understand how to play the game, it's in your best interest to make sure that I don't necessarily know that. And again, I'm not saying to you personally, but just the way it's evolved over time.
I think that that's why it's so important here, this campaign, because we passed the game. I mean, you have to take these things. I think in Nashville they're not taking these things seriously.
Right.
Sometimes.
Right, but I think, it to me, it has to be. It has to be politically dangerous for you to pass a bill. Not you personally, but it has to be politically dangerous because we understand it. If it's not dangerous, that means we don't understand it. If it's easy to throw something in and get it passed, it's because we're not paying attention as a public. And I think
people have their own. People vote for public officials so they'll represent them,
right.
And that's what I'm saying is that, well, you're giving me a 2-year term. You'd be giving me a 2-year term to really do what you want to do, and I think that
I agree with you that is.
If you don't, you know what I think? I think that a loud voice is better than no voice. That's what I think.
Right, and I agree with you that is the design, but whether the design and the function are the same thing, I guess is where I start to separate from what you're talking about. And if that's your intent, I hope you can pull it off, and I wish you the best of luck in doing so. But like I said, I think it needs to be politically dangerous. We need to get into a world where politicians are scared of their public again. And I think that's one of the things that's not happening like it used to.
Respectful of their public.
Okay.
To listen to them.
Nicer way to say the same thing, but yes.
But but that you have to know what they want. There's no other reason to be a politician.
There should be no other reason to be a politician. All right. So, every time I do a campaign show, I got 5 standard questions I like to ask. And we'll go from there, and we'll do some plugs, and then we'll do an outro and dance a little bit more and call it a day. So number 1 on my 5 standard questions is we've talked a little bit about it anyway, but is this your first political run?
Yes, it is my first public political run.
Okay, and so I follow up on that. Is there a private political run?
No, but I've been run for many offices politically through my life. I mean, politics is part of life.
Okay.
And so
but as far as an elected seat in the
public office, yes.
So, and again, I think you've alluded to it a couple times. I think you've alluded to the answer to this, to part 1B of the question 1 is that. But the 1B is, what's the future? Is this the beginning? Is this your first of many runs? Is this just a very specific? You have a set of issues.
I think in 2 years you got to be able to get the state to accept that $2.1 billion to expand healthcare coverage.
Okay, so you get the expanded healthcare coverage and you retire. Is that the plan?
Yeah. You know what? That and fully funding public education, some much needed gun safety legislation, and how about the Republicans support all these ideas so I wouldn't have to do them in the first place?
I mean, how about we drop Republican and Democrat and just have people? That would be cool with me.
I know what I'm saying. In the common sense in Nashville says we need these things. To fully fund public education, to expand healthcare coverage so people don't get ruined financially if they get sick, to have some sensible gun safety legislation, which includes, the full gamut of background, the age, the mental health, and to have real policies that protect unionized workplaces. That's another thing we haven't even talked about for a while. I mean, during the whole interview, right. And the rights of several communities out there that need protecting.
Right.
So I think that's what we need to do in Nashville. If everyone did it together, we could all go. It'd be great.
Okay, so question 2, this gets real serious. Question 2 is, where's your favorite place to eat around here?
In District 18.
Preferably, yeah.
Or we're in Knoxville.
Yeah, Knoxville's fine.
You're gonna get me there, but I'm gonna tell you something. I'm a frequent customer of the Plaid Apron. I want to say hi to Rosa. I think that I would love to see another restaurant in Western Plaza, finally, that we could walk to. Because I think I take the CAT system a lot. I use the bus system and to go down to work, to travel out to West Knoxville. And I think that
that one in the corner. What was it? It was Black Horse for a while, and then before that,
I know it was deep in there. And I also think that the Mezcal is good out there. It could be in District 18. All the places on Sutherland are good too. You go District 18 would be Alcoa Highway. Not too many restaurants, but there are some going into South Doyle, Mount Olive, and those are 2 districts, South Doyle, Mount Olive, that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to. I want to hear what they have to say.
Gotcha. And what is so question 3 is, what's your favorite ice cream?
Favorite ice cream would be chocolate. Big fan.
Good.
And the thing is that I'm a big ice cream fan.
Fair enough. So where's your favorite? Well, we won't go that one. All right. So question 4, we go back into actual politics. And I alluded to it in my little rant a second ago. It's like, do you?
Is that your kid?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they they don't respect the recording times. Anyway,
Hi. Happy Father's Day.
question 4 is: do you feel like partisanship is a value add to me, the voter, in your race?
I think that partisanship is unfortunately, I mean, it's people affiliated with parties, but what does that do to in your race? That's a tough question. What do you mean by that question?
Well, I mean, like again, I'm an 18 resident. I went through the amazingly complicated, crazy 18 last time around, the Manus Oster primary when then there was challenge and all that kind of stuff, which is great for me. Good content. I learned a lot of things I didn't know about the system, and then I had Virginia Couch, who was the Democrat in that race, and in talking to different people and the way the partisan party stuff works, that was one 18. They thought Couch had a chance in 18. And I think Eddie Manus being the one that ended up actually winning the Republican primary and there really hurt her chances as the thing shook out. But I guess to me, one of the things that I struggle with most, I am not a party person. I don't care about the parties. I don't care about the party ideals. They aren't important to me. And so the designation on a ballot doesn't matter to me. I would prefer realistically that you and Elaine Davis and Testerman all ran head to head in a primary, and then we just eliminated the worst one and move on. I don't see the value personally.
We should all be on the same show. You should have us all on the same show. I think with regard to party, I just answer that. No, I'm sorry that. Unfortunately, one party is the party of intolerance and exclusion, and another one is the party of tolerance and inclusion. So I only see one. With so much been going on, I just see so much exclusionary legislation, discriminatory legislation coming out of Knoxville.
So the short answer is,
it's just so.
Right.
I think unfortunately, it seems like we're so polarized, and that's why there's an urgency, because I do not believe that many people in this area, in District 18, believe in what's going on.
Okay, so I mean that's a short answer. Yes, that the fundamental differences in parties is important to you, and so that should help me make a decision.
Yeah, because of the current state of the Republican Party.
Okay. And so now the number 5 is the hardest question then, especially given what you just said, is I want to know about a Republican that you know and like and think that does good work.
I guess Eddie Manus might be one.
Well, if you ask Republicans, he's not a Republican. So
he's a Republican. I know, but he'd be one. That would be good if you want one. I'm sure there are more. Anyone on city councils of some other maybe Republican-controlled cities that are, in Nashville or Memphis might be doing a good job.
Okay.
I think our current city council is working well with the balance between Republicans and Democrats, and I think that I think party affiliation is very important because there's a difference now. There's such a distinction between inclusion and exclusion.
I mean, I'm not going to.
People can get over that. I hope people can get over.
I'm not going to disagree with you on the principle of that, but again, to me, in the current state of especially national politics, I'd say it's a rough time to be running as a Democrat. I think that D moniker damages you more than it helps you, even with the inclusion statement that you're making.
It's amazing what country, you live. That wasn't always the case.
I mean, I agree, and I think in 4 years it'll flip over because we'll have somebody else and it'll be a mess. I mean, it's whoever's in the White House right now is the worst party to be in on a midterm election. When's the last time we've had a midterm that didn't flip? Nationally.
And I think let's not forget that the more people who are interested in politics, the better it is for politics.
I agree.
What I think, my personal opinion, is that if 100% of the people voted in any precinct or district or state or city or country, I would be in accordance with the result of that election if 100% of the people voted. But our voter participation rate is so low that you don't even know if any party is even making any difference, because it's around 50% or less in some of these elections.
Well, because I think, and understandably so, but I think elected officials don't take apathy as a vote. They don't consider the fact that they only won 30% of the population as they just take that as a win and move on. They don't take that as a, well, 70% don't care, either don't care enough to vote or didn't vote for me, so I should probably make some actions to fix that.
I think it's important to vote because you're setting an example for future generations. I mean, right now you're voting, or you're not voting, but then maybe you'd like your kids or to vote a certain way. So just the example, I think that voting for that's the essence. Voting for public officials is the essence of democracy we created. I've written about that.
I agree with you,
research. I've written about that. I have a book that deals with it.
And I follow 100%,
right now.
But I think
everyone has to vote.
I think voting for the sake of voting is not the answer either, though. I don't think that's enough.
No, but you vote. You must vote for. I mean, you have to believe in something, and the thing is, you have to be interested. The thing is that the country's based on compromise. That means, you get some things and you don't get other things, but you can't look at the fact that you're going to have to compromise as a reason for not participating.
I agree. I agree. I am 100% with you. I want more people voting, but I want more people voting with some knowledge about what they're voting about. Like, I don't want people voting for a county commissioner thinking that they're going to do something in the schools. I don't like it. Drives me crazy. That is my number one pet peeve. The more I start to get into and understand, the more frustrated and upset and kind of mean I get about politicians talking about things that aren't in their wheelhouse.
I agree. It's very confusing. And there's so many districts and overlapping, jurisdictions and offices that sometimes it's difficult to tell.
Right.
Like, we're one of the rare cities that has a division between county and city mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, not rare, but many people don't have that. So, if you come from a place that doesn't have that and you see that, maybe seem different.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah, because I think a lot of people.
It works.
I mean, a lot of people think that the city and county are not that the city is not necessarily in the county. Like when you get down to governmental issues and stuff like that, it's like, it is.
Very good candidate. Debbie Helsley is going to be great county mayor.
I pissed her off a couple days ago, so I might not get that interview I've been working on. So anyway, we went long. That's great. I love it. Give me your plugs, email, website, all that kind of stuff. I'll put links in the bio.
I want to say, first of all, happy Father's Day again.
Thank you.
It's been great to talk to you. To all my possible supporters, look to electkaplan.com. That's ELEC, elect Kaplan, one word. ELECT, Kaplan, KAPLAN, one word.com. And thank you very much.
All right. Well, I will put that in the show notes. We're going to dance our way out of here, and we'll call it a night.
Have a good evening. It's been great talk.
Thanks, buddy. Almost in agreement, everybody. Greg Kaplan, District 18. He's you could kind of backburner this conversation for a little bit. We got to wait for the primary mess to get out of the way in August. But this is he'll be on the November General for us out here at District 18. Like I said, go to the website almostinagreement.com. And check out the Election Guide 22. It's got KGIS and the Knox County Election Commission links. Like we were talking about, you can double check your registration status, what district you're actually in, where your voting location is, all those kind of things. You can learn how much your house is worth and who bought it last and for how much too while you're on KGIS. It's fun. KGIS is a neat thing to look at, but that gets all your election stuff, does all that kind of stuff. Get that everywhere. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter. I'm all out of whack. Yeah, check us out there. Almostinagreement@gmail.com is my email address if you want to hit us up with any questions or anything you want to know or anybody you want me to talk to. And got a couple shows scheduled next week, so we're going to keep grinding out what we do, and we're going to keep talking to candidates, and we're going to keep talking about what's going on here in Knoxville, Knox County, and try to pay attention to what's going on the state level, too. So we're Almost in Agreement. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Greg, for doing the show, and we'll talk to you all soon.